Hello and welcome to Audible River. I'm Alan Rice and I am very happy to be here with Archie Hearne, art collector and co-founder of Hearne Fine Art in Little Rock, Arkansas. Hi Archie, it's great to see you.
Hey, it's nice to be here, Alan.
Yeah, so we met in January when you were here for the reception of the show that you're here picking it up today.
Actually, we met, we bought the show in December initially, and then we came for the opening in, I think, February. We came in February. Oh. Yeah, it was still winter.
Yeah.
We drove the show in, and then we came back, and then we had the big activity where they had a reception. They had the show going. The show actually went for 6 weeks, and we had a sort of an event around it. We spoke to the faculty, to the students. So it was open to, this show was open to the university and the community. Very successful show.
And tell me about the show. What kind of pieces did you have in the show? I saw it. It was great. I want to hear your description.
Well, Alan, we collect mostly African-American art, and we sort of, I wouldn't say it's period art because we are very eclectic in our collection. I started collecting art when I was 18, and I lived in Chico then. Marion Epstein was a professor and a bit of a philosopher. But I met Marion when I was about 19, and I lived with Marion. And during that time I lived with Marion, the art professors would come by and they'd talk. I was a science student. I was an athlete and a science student. I wanted to be a doctor, so I was taking all these science courses. I didn't know if I was going to become a doctor, but I made it over time. But I collected art. I've always had art on my wall ever since I was 18. And then by the time I finished my medical education, got married, and I just decided that I wanted to open up an art gallery. So I began to travel around, collect art. In the process of collecting art, it's a bit of a detailed kind of experience. First of all, you have to like art, and you have to be able to afford it. And then you have to understand what you get out of the art. There's a whole milieu in collecting art. You meet very famous people, you meet very, very philosophical people. I always said some of the best people in the world are not just performing artists. People like say, oh, I'm an artist, I sing, I'm an artist. We've dealt with mostly artists of particular skills, painters, sculptors, watercolorists, people who do not so much craft. These people are not crafty. These people, most of them have a degree, most of them are well trained. A lot of the artists are actually in museums. We have done shows with artists who have gone skyrocket after we've done a show with them. Then our own personal collection, we always buy a piece from the artist or several pieces from the artist. But for me, there's an expression that the French like to talk about. They say art is a bastion against death. It's like when you come home, you've got on your wall all of this art, and it kind of protects you. Most people like to get home after a busy day. It is wonderful to get home, and you've got all of these beautiful images on the wall. Now, obviously, I'm an African American, so I'm going to collect work that sort of represents me. I mean, I have some Asian art. I have art by other artists, but the majority of my work is done by African Americans. Now, I'm a little different in my collection. I don't collect a name, I collect images, and very beautiful aesthetic images. I'm one of those people that like so-called pretty pictures, representational pictures, pictures of women, pictures of children, whether it's watercolor, if it's a sculpture, it has to be very well done. I'm not big into abstract. My wife has gotten me into abstract over time, and there's some beautiful abstract work. And I can appreciate people like Jackson Pollock. I can appreciate work. Basquiat, believe it or not, is not one of my favorite artists.
No, really?
No, he's not one of my. I had a story that a friend of mine, Tafa, told me in New York. Tafa is one of my artists. He's from Ghana. He has a very French slant on his art. He has very heavy palette, very thick oil. He told me one day, he said that Basquiat, I don't know if he met him, but he said when Basquiat got a lot of money, and they said, Basquiat, what are you going to do with your money? He said, I'm going to take some art lessons. Okay, so people, so we say, do people stumble into art? Is it like becoming an engineer? You go get trained for it, and then all of a sudden you get a job and you do something like that. Even an architect has a very structured way of their existence. Artists are very structured, but they tend to be much more creative. They produce things that you don't normally see. Even photography is also that way. Some people have an eye for capturing an image. So the artist is a person who captures an image. And Samela Lewis said, and this is another reason we collect art, there's a famous historian, her name is Samela Lewis. She said art is not a luxury as most people believe, but it is a necessity. It documents our history. It provides us a view of the past for the future generation. You can go to a museum and you could see these beautiful artworks by Davy. Go to Paris and you go to the Louvre. You see these beautiful images. Without those images, we would not have known what people live like or what they look like. We have photography now, which gives us that same type of thing. But the artist also gives us a different view, a different window by which we look at life. And so me collecting art, it is just like a person collects a watch or car, but I find much more value in this type of art. Portraits, watercolors. I mean, it's just fascinating to me. I'm still collecting. If I find something that I like, I'm going to try to figure out a way to get it. It's a bit materialistic to collect art, but it's a good way to support a population of people who don't generally make as much money. I mean, some people become very famous, but there are a lot of people who don't become famous. But I like to support that existence, that part of the world that people create that work, and they need support. And so I've been very supportive to the point where I've opened up a gallery. We've been in the gallery business for 36 years.
Wow. As
of this year, I think June, we will celebrate our 37th year as gallery owners, and we're still bringing in new artists, and we're still showing some of the same old artists. And we do the same thing. Let me tell you exactly how we like to bring an artist to town. When we do an exhibit, we hang the show very beautifully. Garbo does a good job. Moy does a good job. And we involve the community. We will find an elementary school that we will take the artist to. They'll do a demonstration. We'll take them to a high school. They'll do a demonstration. Then we'll take them to a university and they'll do a demonstration. Then we try to do something with the city. Maybe get them a key to the city, depending on their level of fame. Mm-hmm. Get them a key to the city. Then we'll have a big social event at our house, with some of the collectors. And then we'll have the show. And the show will go on for anywhere from a month to 3 months. But we like to, and then the big thing is we have this thing, we like the artist to speak. We want to hear their voice because there's a narrative. Every artist has a narrative, just like I have a narrative about collecting.
Right. That's really beautiful. Man, you said many, many things. Some of the things I want to go back on here, and that is you started out by talking about, and I'm going to paraphrase, okay, how the art that's on the walls in your home, how that's in a way reassuring when you come home from a long day. But the thing that I'm imagining, what you're describing there, is like you're seeing something valuable reflected in this art, the art that you collect, the images that mean something to you. There's something within you that you see reflected back.
Well, we know, from a metaphysical standpoint, that the color blue soothes us, right? Red inflames us. So when you look at a blend of colors and a blend of images, they do things for you. Now, I'm a person that, I'm always trying to balance things. I don't go to bed at night without saying to myself, I've got to balance myself. I've got to reconcile things. I've got to go over things and come up with a sort of a solution for the day or a synopsis of the day so I can put myself back in order. So when I get up the next morning, I said, I can make it. It's this thing about self-reflection. This thing is Saturday Night Live. The guy used to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm okay, you're okay. Well, art does that for me because it shows the creative parts of our existence. If you plant a flower and then you look at it over the season, your flower blooms, and you said, God, let's go in the garden and look at what I did. Well, your life is like that too. You have these seasons, and I'm a very season-oriented person. I look forward to the seasons. I look forward to development, but I also look forward to something developing. I mean, and then in myself, I see that as I've gotten older, I still have certain things I consistently do. And the thing I consistently do is reevaluate my life and make sure it's on track. You know, I have to have some resolution at the end of the day that I've done something right or that I'm in the right direction. I never have a boring moment. I don't remember having a boring moment in my life. I could be anywhere and I'm not going to get bored because I've been lucky enough to live in an environment. I grew up in San Francisco, Bay Area. I was around doing the Panther movement. I was around during the Vietnam War. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, which was full of very, I would say, life. You know,
Yes.
Rode a bicycle for an extended period of time. So I was always looking, go to college, I was always looking, always reading, always looking. So that helped me develop. And then what helps you develop more is to see images. You know, learning is just not reading a word, but every word means something. If you see the word cat, you would never know what a cat was until you saw a cat. And learning is that way. You read, you see, and you embrace it. And then me, I tend to utilize information for my balance in life. I mean, continuously. Even talking to you, Alan, I said to myself, what am I going to say to Alan? You know, I saw your podcast. I said, and you said, well, I like to talk about this and that. I'm the same person, same type of person. I could talk philosophically all day, you know, about what's going on. You know, where are people going? What are we going to do next? Should we go to the moon or not? Why should we go to the moon? What's on the moon? We're going to screw the moon up. We get there. What are we going to? Can't breathe. You know, it's too cold out there. Why are we going out there? Why don't we use the money here? If we go to the moon, are we going to screw it up? What are we going to do out there? So I have you know, real kind of extensive ideas and thoughts about pretty much everything.
Well, that's really wonderful. And you're talking about balance in a way that feels like art, the way that you describe it. This is like you're making an art out of your own life.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't. I don't think you've ever described yourself as an artist.
No,
but
I have an artful life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to put on a pair of shoes without, you know, looking at them and saying, I like these shoes. I mean, I'm a very orderly person, so I pretty much like everything I have. If I get up in the morning, I'm a doctor. I put my scrubs on. It has some symmetry to it. I got a clean white coat. You know, my desk is all ordered. And the patients come to see me. I try to give them an artful conversation. It's not like, hey, what's wrong with you? It's like, hey, what's going on? Why are you here today? What can I do for you? I approach everybody that way. Even coming here to Chico, I was sitting on the rental bus. It was with a family of people. That little kid was smiling at me. I smiled at him. And then I asked the parents, I said, oh, these your kids? And they said, yeah. I said, well, I got grandkids that age. So we went into a discussion. We talked about Portland, living in Colorado. We got into things. She said, I bet you're sick of listening to Gabby Playhouse. I said, I have to listen to that all the time. So I pay a lot of attention to from moment to moment. I hardly ever miss anything. I got a good memory. And I have a good eye for things, and I enjoy that. You know, I actually am delighted with the senses that God gave me, and I got an education, so I've been able to translate life into something meaningful and focused, and it gives me a balance, it gives me a base by which I can, you know, withstand, you know, all the pressures of life. So I'm not a person that gets depressed that often. You know, I'm very kind of positive. I'm a positive person, you know, very positive person. Very, you know, I'm always happy. I'm a happy person, if you want to say that, right? And it's a result of art. You know, the art has supplemented that. My, I guess, God-given abilities to learn. I'm lucky. And there was a lady named Susan Apgar. This is very important. I studied peds. And they said, well, everybody's equal. That's wrong. We're not. We don't all have the same birthright. Virginia Apgar said, within 5 minutes, a child should have several things going on. They should breathe. They should turn pink. They should be irritable. They should be screaming. They should just be excited. Now, after 5 minutes, if that kid's not blue, if that kid is blue, not moving much, not pink, not breathing, after 5 minutes, the child is going to get an anoxic insult. Basically, an insult, we call it anoxic encephalopathy. A child can develop cerebral palsy because they didn't get oxygen. It took them 10 minutes to get the kid, fired up. Well, guess what happens? When the kid goes to school, little Johnny is sitting over there. You say, Johnny, A, B, C, D, and then he says, yeah, he repeats it. Then another kid over here, he says, man, this kid's been in this class for the whole year and can't count from 1 to 10, can't do his 8. It's a little slow, right? We say that. And then if you go back and you look at their birth record, you find out they had a little bit of a low APGAR. They give you a score. They call it the APGAR score at 1 in 5 minutes. 1 minute, you better be all bright and cheery, maybe get an 8. And then at 5 minutes, you better get a 10. And if you come in there with a 5 and a 7, then you're going to be that little kid who's very slow. So we're not all born equal. And it's not based on race, gender, or anything like that. It's just based on pure living. You grow a plant, and the plant doesn't get light. Well, that plant is not going to grow. That plant doesn't get nutrition. It's not going to grow. Well, there's a certain element that a person has to have at birth. So when you look at a very bright child, well, he didn't have any problems at birth. You look at a kid who's a little slow, some issues, he might have a little birth problem. So we're not all equal. So you can't sit and says, have expectations of people. And as a doctor, I'm very patient with people because I realize that everybody does not operate on the same level. You ever see people just don't get it? And you can't be mad at people like that. You have to be more understanding. You have people who are stupid. They can be brilliant and stupid. You have people who are a little slow. Sometimes they say retarded. We have to understand that. And ignorance is just you don't know. You can't fault a person for being ignorant. But once you inform a person, then they're not ignorant anymore. So you should have expectations of them. But you can't have expectations of someone who's slow and someone who just wants to be stupid. There's no expectation there. So that's how I approach people. You approach them initially as a human being. You talk to them and you see whether you give them as much as you can. And some people you back off because you realize you're not being very effective. So that's how I've approached my relationships with other people. How I approach my relationship with myself, I'm full because I've got art. I was born with a nice family. I'd say I was gifted. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So what am I supposed to do if I'm gifted? They said if you're a gifted person, you're supposed to extend yourself to other people, and that's what I think I've always done. I've always been very generous, not to a fault though, but pretty much. I'm a pretty much giving person because I get so much.
Well, it sounds like you were raised with good values and a good family that sort of it naturally promoted that sort of thinking.
Alan, let me say this. When we talk about family, when we talk about family, to me, I tell my wife all the time, I watch these programs, family this, family that. Well, my family is the world. Can I say that?
Yes.
I mean, I've met people all my life, and the people who raise you and develop you is anybody who comes to you and gives you something human. Someone who treats you kind, opens the door for you. I remember being in Little Rock, and I'm 75 years old, right? And, I don't feel old, but I was going through this door, and this guy, this young white guy, tall, handsome guy, opens the door for me and say, "After you, sir." I said, man, that's a gift. That's a well-trained person. So that's my friend. That's my friend. That's someone I respect. So it's not all African Americans, all Asian people. Anybody who is kind, anybody who is giving is my family. Make sense?
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
I don't have this thing, my family. Oh, your family can be rotten, I had some rotten. I had some great people in my family. And I had some very rotten people in my family, but they were interesting. And me being the oldest boy, I was really given a lot by my uncles and things, experiences. I had one uncle who was a pimp, one was a murderer, knew Fillmore Slim. One he married a white girl. It was my aunt now, And he went to he was interested. My uncle Butch, who I loved, used to drive me around in his Cadillac with his whores in there, and he would take me to these nice Chinese restaurants. That's where I developed my taste for things, you know, because I grew up in San Francisco. And he'd drive me all these fine places, but I didn't want to be that, right? Butch ended up going to Leavenworth, and his son went to Leavenworth after him, right? My cousin, right? I have one cousin who is a chronic bank robber, right? Then I've got cousins who are PhDs in education. So those are the extended family. But to me, my extended family is anyone who has teachers, educators, the artists I meet. You know, Alan, you and I might end up being best of buddies. Who knows?
Yeah, we just met, and who knows, right?
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, yeah. But that's me in a nutshell. You know, and that's how I think I did well in school, because I would always have a friend. Went to medical school, always have a friend. I got a lot of friends. My wife said, "Archie, you got friends everywhere." I said, "Because I love people. People love me."
You know what? I like living that way too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can relate to that actually.
Yeah.
You know, Archie, a lot. And myself, I think that I like being with people. I like people. I immediately want to know about people. It's like why I do the podcast.
It's a gift. You know, I don't, at this point in time, I don't think I have any enemies. I might have some people who are envious of me, but I don't have any I don't have anybody who's after me, anybody that, you know, I have personally, you know, I don't have any conflicts with people right now. And I've hardly ever had conflicts with people. You know, I've always been kind of the funny guy, joking, serious, but I consider myself a very kind, giving person. And I intend to focus on that. It's not a brag. You know, sometimes you say to yourself, well, I'm not sure of myself. Well, I'm sure of myself in terms of being a giving person, you know, a human person, you know. I don't see it any other way. And some people, I see people, you know, like the whole mental health thing issue, you know. I said it's either your job, your husband, your wife, your family, money. It makes you, it's unhappiness is what people are, creates mental illness. They're unhappy about something. Once you give them what they're unhappy about, then they become cured. Now I'll explain this very, very clearly. When I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and believe it or not, when I went to medical school, I don't even know how I passed the boards in psychiatry. I learned later there was two basic aspects to mental illness. There were the people who have affective disorders. I mean, those are the schizophrenics. They have brain disorders. They see a psychiatrist. And the majority of our mental health problems are related to behavioral issues. Mm-hmm. So you have the affective issues where people have, you know, brain damage, and you have the behavioral issues. Maybe they weren't raised right, something happened in life. We're dealing with a lot of that. And that behavioral stuff is based on unhappiness, mostly. Right. And then we let it grow and grow and grow. And then my teacher told me, the professor, one important, we repress a lot of things. We hide them and we try to forget them. But our repression lies behind the heavy, those swinging doors of memory. And that's when they do cognitive therapy. They get you to remember things that happened to you. And once you can remember that, then the doors open up and then you could begin to heal. I mean, that's the basic principles of cognitive therapy, is to get people to open up and figure out what they're unhappy about.
Yeah. Well, now, you've studied this, so it sounds like you may have been doing this with yourself throughout your life.
Always evaluating myself, you know, always looking at it. I'm always looking at myself, you know, look, and in light of what goes on in the world, you have to say, well, what can you do? Because, I mean, I am very, at the current time, I'm very disturbed. You know, I can handle it, you know, I'm not going to get crazy, but when I listen to the news, I'm like, man, sometimes I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, God, man, this is not right. This is not right, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely.
Strange times we live in.
Right, very strange times. Then you wonder, but I watched this movie. You know the guy who was dating the Kardashian, and he was on Saturday Night Live, I don't know his name. He's turned into a very serious actor.
Yeah. I can't recall his name right now.
Yeah, but he was on Saturday Night Live, and then he also was in a James Bond movie or something. But this guy did Nuremberg. Nuremberg was a movie that was on Netflix recently.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but I saw the ads for it.
When you see it, what you'll realize is that these guys that work with Hitler, they actually believe that they were right, first of all, right? And the guy that played the psychiatrist, he said, God, he said, well, this is just not then, it's now too. You have a group of people, and this is what's going on currently in our world, that people actually believe they're right about what they're doing wrong. The atrocities that are committed against people, they believe they're right. And we'll always have that faction of people. So my mother told me, years ago, she said, Archie, there'll always be poor people. There'll always be human condition. I mean, we're never going to solve that. That is part of nature. You know, it's. I mean, when we went to school, we talked about the survival of the fittest. Well, Darwin really didn't. That wasn't Darwin saying. It was Williams' thing. Darwin was more into genetics. He didn't come up with the survival of the fittest. That's kind of a misnomer for people to believe that Darwin said, survival of the fittest. No, that's not wrong, and it's not right either. You know, you have different type of genetic selections that will. Nature will choose what will work. In an environment, what won't. Man tries to force himself into making decisions. You know, we had eugenics, where we're gonna, create the perfect individual. You know, Nazi Germany, we're gonna create the perfect individual. That's a fallacy. You know, we know that now because we have a very integrated society. We have mixed people, mixed races. We have mixed ideas. And we can see it through the art that we have a similarity. We still love the aesthetics. We still love our family. We still love flowers. You know, we still love the sun coming up. And there are the people who believe that, oh, these people are not intelligent. These people are not. Well, they've been proven wrong. And somehow, but it still rises up. You know, this wrong rises up. I guess that's just the balance of life.
Yeah, yes, it could be. You know, it's interesting that you bring this up because obviously, this is something that could be. It's quite puzzling to people maybe like you and I who are looking at the world the way it is and asking why. Why is it? Why would anybody think like this? Why would anybody behave this way? And I think that, I mean, for me, I've been learning that people are just made different, like what you were just saying. Yeah. But what I also see is that in places where diversity is welcome, places where you have different cultures coming together, we have different ideas, exchange of ideas, more communication, and especially like in the art world, to me these are more creative environments. These are to me this is where life is celebrated in a much richer way. Yeah. That's my opinion. But some people are afraid of that. I think it's maybe afraid of the way that they're made. They're afraid of too much creativity or too many ideas.
Those phobias. Sigmund Freud got into a lot of that phobia stuff, and people afraid that someone's going to take over. Like the theory is that we would have one. Out of every 3 people, 1 would be Hispanic. So this current administration, they say, well, we got to get rid of these people because they're going to take over. Well, I don't know about that. And the guy made a statement. How can you deport someone from their own land? That doesn't make any sense. How are you going to deport people from their own land when they were here first anyway? I mean, this, right. We're in California. Everything is named after someone who was Hispanic. Okay, we talk about the Spanish coming over here, so-called European colonizers mixing with the Indians, but that evolved. Next thing you know, you don't know whether they're Spanish or they're Native American, but they're a blend of people. And so you look at the Native American here. How are you going to say that oh, this is our land, this is America? No, this land belonged to them initially. And everybody is pretty much an immigrant anyway. Black people were the first early black immigrants. After World War II, the Irish came, Jewish people came from it. So those are the immigrants. I mean, we know who was here first, the Indians. Then people came from Spain, Portugal. This is a blended society. For someone to think that one race or another, or racial, political, social. Now, I think socio-economically, you have to watch it because I think a lot of rich people are, they're playing this game. There's not enough resources for everyone, which is bullshit. Yeah. There's plenty of resources. I mean, you drive through Alabama, you want to see some land that's not being used. Yeah. Drive places that are just lush beyond your imagination.
Yes, and you know, if you just take stock of the actual amount of resources that are in the world right now, and the amount of wealth that there is,
Yeah.
you know, being held wherever you find it, I mean, I think that anybody can do the math and see that there's enough for everybody.
There's enough for everybody. They always used to say there's plenty at the top. There's plenty at the top and the bottom. It is our perception, is where we're being taught. It's a philosophy which is a kind of a made up philosophy. We go from one era to another. You know, we used to go through the periods of classism, neoclassicism, now modernism. I don't know what era we're in now.
Well, I don't know. I think we're postmodern.
Yeah, postmodernism, which is whatever goes. It's like fashion, you know. That stuff just recycles, you know. Fashion just recycles. Here we go.
Exactly.
They're wearing the bell bottoms again. You know.
I know, right?
What are we gonna be wearing next? We don't know. Tents.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna wear.
Yeah, no,
But-
I read an article, and this kind of relates to art a little bit. I read an article some time ago, and it sort of related to my experience that new culture kind of stopped in the '90s. It's like that was so you go like through the 20th century, and you've got all these changes, and you come up to the 60s, and things get really crazy, and and then in the 70s it just kind of starts to settle down. But by the 90s, you know that like you look at music, art, or whatever. Now I think that's why they're calling this postmodernism.
The only thing that's unique is technology. You know.
Yes.
Technology is altered, but guess what they're using? They can only use the essence of our existence. I mean, so AI is just us fed back to us faster. And we don't even understand. I did a course on medical AI. No one understood what the person was talking about. They were saying, well, what are we going to do with it? The guy had all these words about what it does and how it does this. Someone says, well, what are we going to do with it? Are we just going to do it faster, quicker? Do we need to do it faster, quicker? Are we going to make that flower grow in a day? Are we gonna grow that corn in a day? Do we need the corn in a day? Do we need to have winter? Do we need that? It's almost like technology wants to ignore the seasons of the year. The natural development of people, it wants to ignore. It wants to accelerate this for what gain? Profit? Profit for who? I mean, you have enough AI to clean up your house, build your car. Well, who's going to buy the car? Who's going to work? Who's going to have any money to buy anything? You're going to replace AI with people? Well, AI does not eat. AI does not dance. AI does not create any songs. AI does not create any art. It takes what already exists. But AI does not buy bubble gum, does not ride a bicycle, you know, does not make you smile. It does not. I don't think you can screw AI.
Well, that's a different podcast.
Okay. I'll come back on that one, right? Yeah. So where we are, this is what I've always said, Alan.
Yeah.
You have societies like Asian societies that have these dynasties that existed 4,000 years before Christ. Sanskrit, when you look at the original writing, that was way before Christ. Look at Buddhism, that was way before Christ, right? So when we look at who we think we are, America has been around, our so-called America, they're going to celebrate 250 years. That's nothing. But then America itself is a petri dish. Anything can grow in this petri dish. Yeah. And America is a social experiment. Now, you could quote me on that. That's my favorite. America is a social experiment. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the stock market's going to do. We don't know what new cancer we don't know what's going to evolve out of man's, creative and destructive personality. We're not sure.
We're not, but we are seeing the results day to day, right?
We're decimating certain things, and it's like I went to a museum. You talk about art. I was up in Crystal Bridges. Crystal Bridges is a great place for anybody to come. It's all American art.
Okay. Where's Crystal Bridges?
Crystal Bridges is in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Okay.
It was built by Alice Walton, who is the famed Walmart family. She built a beautiful museum, absolutely beautiful. And on one wall, they had an installation. And my grandson, I took him there, right? My grandson was saying, "That's crap, Granddad. This is crap." And he was looking at a Jackson Pollock. He said, "That's crap." But when he saw this piece on the wall installation, he said, "This is the end of the world." And it was this splintered pieces of debris. And it was just kind of placed on the wall. It looked like what's going to happen to the world in 1 second. We are going to just be gone. We're just going to destroy ourselves. They talk about going to the moon. This is the craziest thing I think in the world. The moon, I'm a scientist. I understand what gravity is. If we don't have gravity, then we'll be spin out of orbit. So why the hell would you go to the moon and drop an atom bomb on the moon?
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard about the atom bomb part.
Well, they were talking about testing, drilling on the moon, blowing the moon, mining the moon. And then they said, we're going to do some testing on the moon. I said, you shouldn't touch the moon because the moon is what keeps us in orbit, period.
Right. I mean, well, yes, right. We definitely depend on the moon for everything that happens on this planet.
Right. So why would you do anything on the moon? Why would you touch it?
Well, because people just they're insatiably curious and they want to just mess with stuff.
You can be curious about a lot of things, but we cannot, they said, well, let the kid touch the fire so he can experience. I don't think we need to we don't need to do that. It's like what we're doing now, I listen to all this stuff in the Gulf, Persian Gulf, in the Middle East. Well, we're just sucking. What happens if we suck all the oil out? We don't just continually make oil. There is an a finite amount of oil. Okay.
That's right.
There's a finite amount of oil. People keep thinking that oil is just created. It's a finite amount of oil. So you said, well, we've got these little sinkholes. We got this issues. I said, so what are we going to do? We're just going to suck the blood from the earth, and then we'll be finished.
Yeah, because when the oil is gone, it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. The sea is, when we do what we do at sea, it's gone. So our thirst for, it's not curiosity. I think it's greed. Greed is a reality. It is a reality. We know that.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that greed is based on an arbitrary artificial system. It's a whole philosophy of the way that we have developed values that we teach each other, the realities that we accept about needing money.
It is childish, because if you give a kid a candy bar, and he's got a candy bar in his right and left pocket, one is in his front and left pocket, and he's got one in his mouth, he still wants another candy bar. Okay, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And you see that around people. I mean, why? I mean, you want more. And you have people who become very sensible. You take Bill Gates. You take Apple started off being very benevolent, but you take these people who give their money away. They do things for other people. Those are the philanthropists. Some people do philanthropy for tax breaks, and some people do it because they can. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to figure that out now. Now it's just all about power. The guy Steve Miller, he said something real stupid. He said,
"Oh, I bet."
He said all of this stuff about politics and democracy and republic. He said that's not what it's about. It's about power. It's about control. It's about what we can do. And the guy said, "Man, you sound sick, right? You sound absolutely crazy. This is not what the world is about. Taking from people. The world is about growth. You can't do that. But you have people like that, and maybe he had a bad childhood. Something happened to that brother that drove him like that.
But you know what, Archie? I really kind of think that it's sort of embedded in the genetics to think that way somewhat, and I'll tell you why. I just recently, it was a couple of years ago. Of course I studied Greek classics or whatever, but I reread the Iliad and the Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the thing that stuck out to me that I didn't pick up on before is that throughout all of these stories, these people in those days honored whoever could take what they wanted.
Yeah.
And Achilles' nickname was Destroyer of Cities, right? So now this is ancient civilization that we're talking about. So in those times, they were honoring people who could. And for them, it was all about power, all about control, and that's all that mattered. But over time, we've learned that as we come together, that cooperation and that respect, that we live better lives.
I'm not sure if it's genetics. I mean, everything is kind of genetically based. But it's hard to put that one together. But let me tell you this. I read this anthropologist, a Jewish anthropologist, a really good writer. He did a book on the origin of the world. It was called Homo sapiens. You should read it. I'm going to send you a copy. I'm going to make when you read this, you'll really appreciate it.
Okay.
He said, this is how civilization started. There were these tribe of humans, Homo sapiens, that lived on this side of the river. And there was this group of Homo sapiens that lived on the other side of the river. And then here where evolving human nature happens. So they look on the other side of the river and they said, well, let's go over there and let's just take those people's stuff because we can. But in order to keep them down, we're going to create a hierarchy. And how you create a hierarchy, first of all, you got to create a belief system. So you create a God. But the only way you can get to this supreme God is through me, the hierarchy. And you bow down to me, the hierarchy, and then I'll let you touch God or get close to God. But you got to kiss my hand first. And then after they do that, they tax them. They said, hey, you got to pay for the building I live in so you can come and worship the God that I created. So you create a belief system and you create a party of people who control the temple. But you got to get the people to believe in that deity. It's like in India, they got thousands and thousands of gods. You know that. They have a million gods, right?
Yes.
And then they dare to have these gods, and then they dare to have a group of people who are untouchable. And then they dare to have the Brahmins, right? You can't they're special, right? Which is really screwed up. It's in our society too. You got the Pope who runs the Catholic Church. You have to, in order to get to God, you got to go through him. And so every system, Mao said that opiate, that religion was the opiate of the people. It's like dope. It's like dope. You give them that religion, and then you can do what you want to. And if you notice, everybody who conquers somebody, they take a religion first, and they build schools, and then they bring the army in. Then they tax the people. Then they sell them something. And that's when they bring the business over. Now, it didn't work in Iraq because when Bush went to Iraq, they went over there, they were going to help the people. They brought engineers in. They brought money in. And where they screwed up, they tried to bring in a new system. Well, Muslims are not going to go for Christianity. So that they kicked Bechtel and all those guys off their land because they said, no, we're not going with this. And that's the way it is now. These so-called holy wars, you go back in history, and they said there have been more Christians have killed Christians than Muslims have killed Christians, right? Because you've got the Protestants, the Anglicans, the Lutherans, right? And then I said, well, what about God? Where does God come in here? Well, that doesn't make any difference. That doesn't make any difference because as a Lutheran, we're closer to God, but you got to pay. Even in the black churches, if you don't have any money, you don't sit on the front pew. You know that, right?
No, I didn't know that.
You know that? You go to a black church, and if you're not one of the deacons' wives or families, you go in there, you're a little poor person who lives in the projects. You're not going to the Baptist church and sitting up front. They might not even let you in the door. You didn't know that, man? It's the same thing everywhere. You pay to be saved. Which is fallacy.
It is fallacy. I mean, I believe that because, well, we're talking about, we live in a world where, there's authority is a big thing, right? And so like we have, you go back to Moses, like he had to give them the 10 Commandments, and he had to like get these people in line so that you could have some civilization because these people didn't know how to take care of themselves, right? So we're still dealing with that as a species, right? We got to have some rules, and somebody's got to enforce the rules, right, to keep things in order. However, there's this other part, and I think that this is where we're kind of gaining some freedom and a little more leisure time with the modern society, and we're gaining knowledge of other people in the world, that we're recognizing more of who we are as individuals and what our dreams are.
That's why a lot of younger people are avoiding religion.
Okay.
Because they've seen the hypocrisy and the contradictions in religion. You look at Islam. Now, very few people know about this, the history of Islam. Genghis Khan was considered to be Genghis Khan, vicious, murderous. Well, he basically civilized the Arab world. He brought Islam to the Arab world. People don't know that. They think that, Genghis, he was just killing everybody. He brought civilization to that part of the world because these people were Bedouin, they were uncouth, and he took he was like Alexander the Great. He traveled the world and spread culture everywhere, right? And then, and what we have now, when you look at young people now who travel, and you look at what they have, and this is the art part. If you look at a young person, they might have any type of clothing on that comes from a part of the world because they recognize the uniqueness through the arts. That's the music thing. They recognize that everybody has something to offer, that not one person dominates anything. You know that? Not one person dominates. And so when you see that's where we see hope. When you see young people changing. During the Vietnam, the hippie thing was like, I'll give you another example of that. The hippie thing was like, we're revolting. What happened, like you see the hair these black kids wear, the dreads, they don't understand that. Dreadful is awful. That's what that means. Now, but how did that fashion statement, where did it come from? Well, during the colonial period in Kenya, the British were in Kenya. Jomo Kenyatta was a very educated man, got a degree in sociology, had gone to schools in Switzerland. He came back home. He decided he wanted to get rid of the British. But before he did that, all of the young men who were very formally educated, and they understood the way of the British, tea and, all of the little, things that are considered to be civilized, they went to the Kikuyu highlands, and they let their hair dread up. And it was dreadful. And so when they would come back to town, people said, oh, that's dreadful, that's horrible. So kids don't recognize that their little fashion statement was actually a revolutionary protest.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
It's like jeans. We wear jeans. Well, why do we wear jeans? Because they're fashionable. I mean, they're practical now. But the reason people started wearing jeans, they were in solidarity with the garbage workers in Memphis. Farmers.
That's how it started.
Like Chavez and all this. The jeans were worn because we were going to be in solidarity with the working class man. And then it turns into a fashion statement. $500 Gucci jeans.
Yeah. Everything that becomes popular in earnest gets commodified.
Yeah. Co-opt.
Co-opted. Yes, co-opted.
Yeah,
yes, indeed.
Co-opt. Yeah, co-opt. Yeah. So and then they'll take art and art form. And art forms sometimes are protest things. They're just not always, art. Because you do have protest art, right?
Yeah.
Is it Bansky?
Banksy.
Banksy. Yeah, he's made some statements. And even now, they put. I don't know if you watch the news. Someone drops these big sculptures of Epstein and Donald Trump dancing, and just drops them on the lawn in D.C.
This is beautiful. I love this as an art statement. I mean, and that nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
It's just appearing, right?
Yeah, it just shows up and nobody buys it. Yeah,
right.
It's amazing. But that's where we are in society now. We're at another. I think we're at another threshold. We're going to take a quantum leap, and there are people who are protesting AI. They're not going for these places where they want to put these big what are these storage units for information? What do they call them?
Oh yeah, these big server farms.
Yeah, they don't want them. They're saying, well, first of all, the server farm, it does several things. It utilizes a lot of water.
Oh, yeah.
It uses a lot of electricity, it raises the utility rate, it makes a lot of noise, it pollutes, and after you build it, nobody's got a job there.
Right. Yeah, it's just a building.
And the interest is that people are doing the deals and getting paid initially, but it's not doing anything for society. So people are going to protest that. I read recently that they had OpenAI made a big blunder. And they said it's not what we thought it was, right? And so people are trying to figure this out, right? And it's like we are very much into whatever is popular. Like we're into these diabetic medications, weight loss medications, right? And then next thing we're going to find out this stuff is the worst stuff we could have taken on the planet, right? And it's the same thing with technology. You know, it was designed to help us, not to remove us. You know, what are we going to have, robots everywhere? You know, then we won't be able to use our body. We won't be able to think. You know, so we're at a kind of strange point in life. You know.
Yeah, where we're really having to figure out what matters to us most, and fight for it. I mean, maybe fight's not the right word. I wish I had a better word than fight, but like using our energy and our intention and what we do and say to make right things happen, whatever that is.
It is going to be a philosophical struggle. People at the current time don't really have any philosophy. You know, we look at the great philosophers. Bertrand Russell. Nobody knows about Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell was one of the original American philosophers. Very few people are familiar with him. You know, and I'll give you an example of something that we used to always believe. And everybody knows about Jean-Paul Sartre, the great French philosopher.
Right.
Existentialism. Well, existentialism was proven when Jean-Paul Sartre died. He denounced existentialism, something that he had been talked about all his life. He said, and existentialism was that based on this and based on this is what's going to happen. You know, we do this, we do that. Well, he said it's bullshit. He said, man's life is like a hammer and an anvil, and we have to forge out our existence moment to moment. Moment to moment, we forge out existence. Not because you did this and I did this, it's going to happen. They found it to be untrue. And he said that. So existentialism, and this guy was reigned for years as a great philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre. They got books on it. And when he died, he said it's all bullshit. It's like Buddhism. I'll give you an example. If Buddha was here today, and you've got multiple sects of Buddhism, and the Buddha says, no, first of all, we don't have any Buddhism. We don't have any sects. You guys wrote all this shit up, and that is antithetical to Buddhism.
Right. Yeah. And so I just know. I mean, if the Buddha once said, "Don't follow me," you have to find your own path.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. So we're at I'm not sure we're at is it a crossroads? Can we say that? Or we're at a multiple. We're at an intersection. We're like a confused highway right now.
Yeah.
It's like when Trump went to war, he created a highway without a need for a highway, and then when he created the highway, he had no plans. He had no engineer. He just wanted a highway to satisfy something that someone had said that they thought they needed to take care of. And he says, well, we don't need a highway here. And then you stuck a highway here, and no one knows where to get on or off.
Right. Yeah, and it's insane. It is insane.
Yeah. So but we in society, I don't think we're that bad. But this guy, I had a guy that said, we could go in this direction and create just chaos. Or we can go in this direction and continue a path of reasonability and survival. As a politician said this. And that's where we are. You know, which path are we going to follow?
Well, that's a very good question. And you know what, Archie? Right. I think we're about we're getting close to being done with our time. Yeah, but right, you know what? I've really loved our conversation. Yeah. And you know what? We started out talking about collecting art and the meaning of art in our lives. But you see what happens is that it takes us into everything.
Art is creative because it also allows you to create narratives. All of a sudden you begin to draw on, when the artist, he takes an existing color, existing canvas, and he brings something together. So when you talk, you know, I've seen people come up with ideas and concepts of just thinking about something that existed before, you know, something we knew about before, and it becomes applicable to what we know now. We can see it now. You ever heard that? You know, I can see that now. Right. I never saw that until you mentioned it, type thing, right? So that's what dialogue does, you know, and that's where we are now. That's what we got to continue to do. When people start thinking and talking, that's why they said people have to come together and sit down and and they can talk about their differences, but then they realize it's a fallacy. Someone says, hey, what you're talking about is based on some bullshit. It's, who told you that?
Right.
Oh, I heard that. I know that as a doctor because people, they take vinegar for hypertension. They put clove oil in the baby's ear, and the baby's got an ear infection and dies. So we're operating, with remember that expression, alternative truths, which was really
yes,
alternative, and that's what people. They're not alternative truths; they're alternative lies.
yes.
No, that's not a lie. That's a lie, man. That's a fucking lie. That's a lie. And they said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not sure." So it's uncertainty. We're in uncertain times.
We're definitely in uncertain times, and we're really left to make hard decisions for ourselves, all of us. Right. What's going to matter to us? How are we going to nurture these things? How are we going to find these things and how are we going to find other people that we can create the world we want with?
It's like a universal, we're going to go back to a universal understanding. You love your baby. You love your mother. That's Tao. The Tao. We can have a whole discussion about Taoism too. Taoism. What do we love? What's important to us? And that's what we have to find. What's important to us as humans? First of all, we have to say we're humans. We're not black. We're not white. Morgan Freeman says, how are you going to solve the race problem? Stop talking about it. Start treating people as one, and you won't have a problem. But once you mention, that black guy and this white guy, that's just bullshit. Once you can just say, that's a human, that's a baby, that's a little girl, that's a little boy, then you'll get by a lot of things. And then our society is I think, if you go to Bangkok, Thailand, you'll find out exactly how that works.
In Bangkok, Thailand?
Oh God, man! They just you're just another person there. They don't. I mean, I've been to Bangkok, and man, I swear I was scared because they didn't recognize me. They didn't see me. I felt like I was. It made me nervous. I don't want to say anything. And I hear tall black guy in a little elementary school, and the kids, they don't even look at you. They're just like, I saw you yesterday. So what? Yeah, that's their behavior in Bangkok. If you go to Thailand. They are Buddhists, but they have a big temple, but they don't have any churches. They are practicing Buddhists. Wow. I swear, they don't get in your grill. You heard that? Get in your grill. Right. You're going. Me as a black guy, I go in a New York restaurant, a suit and tie. They're still gonna say, hey, "Who's that black guy over there? He's got a suit on."
Right.
And I'm in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm in the first class restaurants. I'm down on the waterfront. I get treated the same. Police walk by me and don't even see me. I'm like scared because they didn't see me. It was the first time in my life I walked by a bunch of police and they're just like.
And that's the way the world should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? That's a beautiful thought, and that's a great place to wrap this up.
All right.
Hang on a second here, and so.
Ambi.
And that is all for this episode of Audible River. We greatly appreciate our listeners all over the world, and wherever you are on this wonderful planet, we'd love to know what you think about our podcast. So please email us at audibleriverpodcast@gmail.com.